check and find out. But let's ask this way. Instead of saying why, let's say does. Does Islam order me to chop off hands, beat people up? And you forgot one. Cut off heads. What happened? You forgot that one? You had room on the paper. You should have put that one on there. Cut off the head. Cut off the head. Some people have their heads cut off. Oh! Did you know that? Some people had their heads cut off. In fact, if you study French history, the history of France, you'll find a whole lot of royal people had their heads cut off, all on the same day. And they weren't even Muslim, darn. What does Islam teach us? First and foremost, it teaches us about integrity, balance, honesty, rights. So let's find out now how come all of a sudden there's some kind of corporal punishment, physical punishment being distributed here. Suppose somebody steals a loaf of bread, you cut off his hand. Yeah? Is that really true? A guy doesn't want to be a Muslim anymore, cut off his head. They told me when I came to Islam, somebody who's not Muslim, he told me, you don't want to get in that. They're going to cut you up. When you go in, you have to be circumcised. And if you go back out, they'll cut your head off. So either way, in or out, you're getting cut up. Pretty scary religion. I've really heard that. So I went to the one who brought me to Islam, and I asked him. I wasn't Muslim yet. I asked him, I heard something about cutting off people's heads and stuff. And at that time, it was 1991, there was an article in one of the religious journals, Christian journal, talking about Islam and somebody's getting their head cut off. And it was in Egypt. And I said, oh my God. So I showed him this. I said, what do you say about that? He said, well, if you notice, it didn't say that it happened. It said that most likely this is going to happen. So it's not a fact. This is an allegation being levied at Islam by somebody who is in another religion. I said, well, okay, that's fair. But what would you do if a person wants to leave Islam? He said, well, what they really do in Egypt is they will sit with the person and talk to them about it and find out what is it that you didn't like. What is it that you don't believe in? What's the problem? If you just said, well, in Islam you have to believe in Jesus. Well, in Christianity you have to believe in Jesus too. So what's the problem? And step by step, they would go with them. And he said that even then, Egypt doesn't chop people's heads off for leaving Islam. Some people take the law into their own hands. But I found it to be true both ways. If somebody converted from being a Christian in Egypt to become a Muslim in Egypt, they could also be killed by their own relatives out of animosity that's coming from tradition and culture. You just ruined our whole family, you did this, you did that. So that doesn't mean Islam or Christianity did it. It means that people took the law into their own hands. But when it comes to this subject, let's take one that's a little bit more, I think, applicable, is the discussion about why cut off the hand of a thief. Why? Who would be worried about that? Are you really worried that somebody's going to cut off your hand? Because if you are, then what kind of living are you making? What are you doing for a living that scares you? And who are the people going to speak the loudest about this kind of thing? Huh? Who? Lawyers and politicians. And we don't have this in Islam, but if they said they would cut off your tongue if you lied, then all the journalists would hate Islam immediately. You follow that? So it's the one who does these things that's going to be more afraid than anybody else. But if you're not a thief, how many of you think it's nice to have a thief in your family? Huh? Have you had any of your relatives steal something from you? Well, in America, it happens all the time. When people use drugs, they lose their connection with anything else. They don't care about anything else anymore. And they need the drug. They need the drug more than anything, and they will do anything to anybody to get the money for the drug. They will do it. And that's known. So how many thieves do you think we have in America? Every day, stealing and stealing and stealing and stealing and stealing to fight this problem they have inside of themselves, needing that drug. And the more drug they take, the more they have to have the next day, till they kill themselves or go insane. That's drugs. So should you chop off their hand? And what about the guy that steals a loaf of bread? He's hungry. People steal food when they're hungry. Actually, Islam wouldn't cut off the hand of either one of them, because the one has a mental disorder, needs to be treated. The other one is hungry. Islam provides something called the Baitul Mal. Anybody can eat anytime, and they don't have to be a Muslim. They can get all the food, clothing, and even shelter that they need. It's a social system when there is the full Islamic state. But when there's not an Islamic state, it's not available, and that means that full Islamic Sharia cannot be practiced. You must never call for Sharia and the punishment that goes with that unless you've established the environment for it first. Because there are pluses that are not there. You don't provide people with the food, and then you're going to chop off hands for stealing food. That's stupid. And Islam doesn't allow that. So you have to know what the limits are. And that's why I mentioned that in the beginning. You have to understand, too, that an average person like me or Sheikh here, we're not muftis. We're not going to make that kind of call. It's a judge, a qadi in Islam, who has memorized the whole Quran, memorized all the hadith. He's somebody that's there at Fajr every morning to pray his prayers. He's somebody who cares about the community. And he's going to be looking at the one who employed the man who stole the food to find out, how come this man's stealing food? I'm going to look at the employer. How come this man didn't get paid? If anybody else from your employ, people that you hire, is hungry, you're not paying, and they're working, I need to talk to you, because you're the one going to be in trouble, not them. You have to understand that Islam comes from some very beautiful logic, but some people don't understand how to implement it. And so that's what we see again and again and again. We don't see the mercy, and we don't see the compassion, and we don't see the authority, the proper authority being represented when people go out here and start beating each other up. As far as the 100 lashes for the adulterer, there's a difference between adultery and fornication. Fornication is what occurs between boys and girls that are not married. Adultery is what occurs between a man who is married and a woman, or a woman who is married and a man that is not married to him. So that's the difference. And there is a different punishment. But here's the trick behind it. Listen to this. Suppose somebody said they saw fornication. We're not going to talk about adultery here because this would be even higher. But just that, and it's more common, fornication, than adultery in all the societies. So a couple guys come along and they say, we saw so-and-so and such, and they were doing this. Oh, really? You saw them? Yes. You saw them. You didn't just hear a rumor. No, we saw it. Okay? So they go to the judge, and they say it, and they swear it, and you saw them. They were under a sheet or blanket? Yeah. Okay, you didn't see them. No, this is serious. This is very serious. You didn't see them. But we saw when they got out from under the blanket, but you didn't see the act that you're talking about. So these people are the ones who are actually whipped. Did you know that? They're the ones who get the spanking publicly. And then their testimony is not accepted anymore. If they said, okay, we saw it. We saw it. And we saw everything. Everything. Exactly. Clear shot. I don't know if you know much about this, but even in a video, those X-rated videos, it's really hard for anybody to get a clear shot. Let it go at that. So these guys, 2 guys, are saying they saw that, swearing, putting their names to it, swearing on the Quran, everything, okay? Say, okay, produce 2 more witnesses. Huh? Because you have to have 4 eyewitnesses. And they have to know the guy, and they have to know the girl, and they have to describe what they saw. It better match up. Now I got a question for you. What kind of boy and girl are out there doing this in front of witnesses like that? Sound like a sideshow to me. Huh? So in the case of somebody making X-rated videotapes, yeah, they'd be beat for that. You got it. Yep, no doubt. Because this is a destruction of society itself. There's no doubt about that. They would be punished. Now, when it comes to adultery, this is more severe because it's more severe damage. Much more severe because now you could have children as a result of this who are not the child of the proper parent. And this is a big problem, a big issue in inheritance, being raised up, bloodline, getting married to somebody and then finding, oh, that was your own half-sister, something like that. So those things are stronger because the crime is stronger. And by the way, how many of the ladies are married right now? Just raise your hand. Just you're married. Yeah? Married? Okay. Have you ever heard what a lady said, if I ever caught my husband do something like this, I would? Starts with a K, next letter's I, and the next 2 letters are alike, and they're not S's. And in Islam, she does not have the right to kill him. That's spelled out in Surah An-Nur, I think, yeah. Because it says clearly that if he brings evidence against his own wife, and she says no, and he says yes, she says no, yes, no, and they're swearing on the day of judgment, I'm saying the truth, even if I go to hell, I'm saying the truth. Then that's sufficient. No more. Court's not involved. So even the testimony of a spouse claiming they saw it is not enough to bring about the court's punishment, but Allah's punishment for sure going to be on them. So stop and think before you say that kind of stuff. And realize that the courts that we have set up today are far worse, because human beings have a tendency to put their own feelings on a situation, and they will overly punish some man or some woman because of their own feeling and emotion, but they'll let somebody else walk for the exact same crime simply because of some reshwa going on or worse. So do realize that this is from your Creator, this is not human beings. But the compassion comes first, and all the scholars that I ever read about said it's better to err in the leniency and the compassion than it is to be too tough and put the full hudud out there when it maybe shouldn't be. So consider that before you come attacking Islam, and realize that it's for the betterment of the whole society. All of us are benefiting from the laws of Islam, not laws of human beings.
Sheikh, we have quite a few questions left, and I think that we would like to perhaps go to one that will be of benefit for everyone in the room and perhaps bring this evening to a close. And what we will do is take all the questions that have been given and, inshallah ta'ala, check through our websites and make sure that those questions will be answered, inshallah ta'ala. For those of you who would like to write Sheikh Yusuf, you can write him at contact@guideus.tv, That's CONTACT @guideus.tv. And we would like to thank our local organizing groups for inviting us to come over to Beirut, Lebanon, and to visit the other cities here, showing us the wonderful hospitality that you have. And we hope, inshallah ta'ala, we'll have an opportunity to return and visit with you again in the near future, inshallah ta'ala.
Now, question?
Yes, the next question that we have, how does one strengthen one's faith on a daily basis other than through dua or salah?
I'm going to change the question a little bit because I want to make it relative to our subject about misconceptions. Because strengthening your faith, what is faith all about? The idea behind religion is to have a way in the next life to be saved. Salvation. In English, we use the word salvation. And it's happened to me that people have come to me and said, you don't have salvation in Islam. There's no salvation. Where's your salvation? You have to do all this stuff, and then even then, after you do all this stuff, you're not sure you're saved. What Muslim can guarantee they're going to go to paradise? Sure, I'm going. I don't have anything to worry about. No, we can't. True? Absolutely true. If you ask me, I want to come to your religion, what do you got a guarantee for me? The only thing I can guarantee you is hellfire. That I can guarantee. It's very easy to go to hell in Islam. Very easy. In fact, the hellfire will be started with Muslims, scholars of Islam. Yes or no? Yes, because they preached it, but they didn't live it. So that's a hadith of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Allah will start the hellfire with these scholars of Islam who said it, but they didn't follow it. It's very dangerous. So where's the salvation? This is getting scarier, you know? We already mentioned one of the most important parts is to have evidence to be sure that what you're saying, you can back it up. We're positive of what we said. It's easier to go to hell than it is to go to paradise. In fact, look how Allah said it in one of the smallest surahs in the Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر. Allah swore by the passage of time that the human beings are all destined for the hellfire because they're in a state of bankruptcy, khusr, on the Yawm al-Qiyamah, on the Day of Judgment. All of them. Illa, this is your salvation. This is your only salvation in Islam. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَصَّوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَصَّوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Except for those who come to the correct iman in Allah and do the deeds of righteousness and exhort each other to the haqq of La ilaha illallah and all that it teaches, and exhort each other to be patient, steadfast, persevering on that deen. Other than that, la fi khusr. That is the Quran. That is Surah Al-Asr. And it is so clear that Imam Shafi'i, rahmatullah alayhi, he said about it, that if it was all that Allah gave us, it's enough to understand the basis of our deen, our religion of Islam. It's very clear. The salvation is what? إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Believing in the Creator, turning to the Creator, going to the Creator, and not using something between you and Him. And doing the deeds of righteousness. And that doesn't mean a good deed a day, like a Boy Scout or something like that. It's in all that you do, your amalat, how you deal with the people, Muslim or non-Muslim, how you deal with your relatives, how you deal with your boss and your customers, how you deal with the animals, how you deal with the creation itself, even trees and flowers, even water. Prophet ﷺ mentioned all of these things. You read the hadith. There are hundreds of thousands of hadith out there. Many of them are sahih. Some are considered hasan, which means there could be a weakness in the way that it's said. But you read these and you'll be surprised again and again and again. They always come back to the same thing. If you're really a Muslim, it's about belief and action. And that's what it takes. You want to increase your faith? That's what you have to know. So if somebody comes to you and says, what's your salvation in Islam? Or do you have any salvation? Thank you for asking me about my religion. In Islam, we have absolutely need for truth. And if I can't do that, I need to shut up and just say I don't know. But if I know, I have to tell you. And we have it based only on Quran and Sunnah. We don't have our own opinion. If it's not Qala Allah wa Qala Rasul, then shut up. We don't need it. We don't need, that's pontification, rhetoric, and we don't need it. We want to hear what Allah said. We want to hear what the Prophet ﷺ said. Or an explanation. When you do translation, you have to really work on it because Arabic is very strong, and English is very weak when it comes to these matters. That's why I spend a lot of time taking a word and making sure people understand it. And me too. Because for sure, real Islam is nothing different than what Jesus taught, what Moses taught, what Abraham taught, what Adam himself lived by. It is to know that there's only one God, obey Him, and most important, when you sin, and you will sin, and here's your salvation, repent to Him and Him alone. Go back to Allah. Make tawbah. Like a U-turn in the middle of the street. Go back to Allah. Go back to the one who created you in the first place. Put your head on the ground. Raise your hand up to Him. Allah, forgive me. I'm sorry. I did it to myself. I'm wrong. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minadh dhalimin. That's Islam. And that's the salvation. I've been reminded just now that there are some people in our audience who wanted to accept Islam tonight. I knew about that earlier, and that's why I deferred the question, because I didn't want to answer it just then. But I want to make it easy for them. I don't want to bring them up here and put them on the stage, and I don't want to put them in front of the camera, because we don't need that. I don't need that. I know that there is a video out there that shows me giving shahada to a bunch of people at that big peace conference in Dubai. I'm aware of that. I saw it translated to Arabic. And frankly, although I cry when I see it, I don't like the idea that people are using it the way they do, as though it's the only person ever made shahada, or that I'm something big too. It's not. There are people that make shahada every day, and you never heard of them. And there are people that give shahada every day, and you don't know them either. And it really doesn't matter. What matters is, are we trying to get the real message of Islam out there? And when people enter Islam, and this is really key, somebody wants to be a Muslim, are you ready to help them? I dare say, and I don't know this, but I guess here, right now in Beirut, if somebody said they wanted to be a Muslim, that would be a very big thing for them, because they would be going against traditions of their families for who knows how many hundreds of years. And what kind of difficulties would they face when they go back to their friends, their relatives? What would they be looking at when their families find out, oh, you became one of those terrorists, just like that, right? How would they feel? They might lose their job, if they had one. They might lose their home, be kicked out. That happens in the States, by the way. Are we really prepared to help our new brothers and sisters? Because we find that that's the real problem. After they get in Islam, they get this bad treatment. Now we'll come back to that first question we had. Remember that one? Who remembers? It says about, I wish I would know Islam before I meet the Muslims. I'm saying, I wish everybody could meet Muslims like I met. And then they'd all want to be like you. So let's do this tonight. For anybody here who has never said Shahada out loud, Muslim or non-Muslim, but you believe there really is one God and you want to serve him on his terms, according to the way of Muhammad, then you can simply stand up with myself and Sheikh here, and we're going to repeat our Shahada. You can join us, and that makes it real easy for the new people to join right along with us and do their Shahada. It will count for them, and it doesn't put pressure on anybody. It's not my flag. I'm going to put it up. Whoa! The whole room is standing up? How many people are here?
We only have 5 books, so it has to go to the non-Muslims.
Okay, for somebody who never said Shahada before tonight, not Muslim, it's coming tonight, you stay after because we got some gifts for you up here. After. Okay? It's because we got 7 books now? 8? 9? All right. But for those who come up afterwards, that if they don't have enough, I'm going to make sure, inshallah, that they will help you out, give you the books. And we have some other goodies too, right? Yeah. What about Mushaf? You got Mushaf? Muntada. Okay. Inshallah. And I think, we'll do it in English first. And then we'll do the Arabic. Okay? You want the English?
I bear witness.
I bear witness.
There is none worthy of worship.
There's none worthy of worship.
Except Allah.
Except Allah.
And I bear witness.
And I bear witness.
That Muhammad.
Is
the messenger of Allah.
Is the messenger of Allah. Okay, now the Arabiya with Texas accent. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah wa Isa Rasulullah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allah